started. Okay, welcome back. Thanks for hanging with us. We had a little technical difficulty. So our next item is 6.4, 9:09 a.m. presentation. Oh, I'm sorry. 6.5, 9:15 a.m. public hearing, consideration for the final recommended budget for fiscal year 2023-24 for the County of Lake and special districts governed by the Board of Supervisors. And we will be, I'll open this item, but we're going to be continuing it till next week. Do we have any comments? Anything from the public? Okay. Then I'll close this and we'll come back to it next week. We can dig into some of our consent items that have been pulled. And why don't we just go and hit all the behavioral health items since you're here? Why don't you come on up and we'll go through. Yes, Madam Chair?
Madam Chair, if I may, for item 6.5, since it is a public hearing, the suggestion would be to, well, at this point, to reopen 6.5, a motion to reopen 6.5, and to have a motion to continue the public hearing to a date and time certain.
Okay, I'm going to reopen 6.5, 9:15 a.m. public hearing, consideration of the final recommended budget for fiscal year 2023-2024 for the County of Lake and special districts governed by the Board of Supervisors.
And it would be by motion.
motion.
I would like to make a motion, Madam Chair, for reopening item 6.5.
Second.
All in favor?
Second.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it's reopened.
Madam Chair, I move to continue item 6.5 to Tuesday, September 19th
10 a.m.
at 10 a.m.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you. All right. Now come on up. We will start with 510 and we'll just move through all of the behavioral health items.
Madam Chair,
Yes?
may I recommend that the 514 or the Sunrise, which one is that?
Is 514 continued?
514, can you continue that till after, we'll bring that back after lunch. There were people here that wished to be there, but they left because they thought it wouldn't be until after lunch.
Okay. Okay. 5.10, adopt resolution authorizing the standard agreement between the County of Lake and the Department of Healthcare Services for drug medical services for the period of July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2027, and authorizing the Behavioral Health Director to sign the standard agreement and the contractor certification clause. And this was pulled by Supervisor Spatier.
Thank you for this. So I thought this was obviously something that we need to do. We have to have a agreement between ourselves and the state for the reimbursements for the services we provide. But this is a large number, and I just don't want it to go through without having a conversation about what we're looking at. We're looking at about $33 million worth of services per year, and one of the reasons I bring it up is I've been keeping track since 2019 on all the contracts that we see. This doesn't account for contracts that are less than $25,000 that do not come to the Board of Supervisors for approval. And approximately our 2019-20 total for contracts was $6 million. Approximately for 2020 was $8 million. 21-22 was $10 million. 22-23 was $21 million. And we continually increase. And as I stated in the previous conversation, I feel we need to be more embedded in the conversation than just say yes, approve contracts, and wait to see what happens, because there are many factors to why we're not doing great. Everybody in the state is not doing great. We're seeing homelessness continue to rise. We're seeing addiction use continue to rise. COVID did not help whatsoever in that situation. I know we had a 400% increase we were told about in the number of calls. But I just think that with the number of deaths we're seeing, with the impact to our communities, that we need to take a more front row seat in this conversation of what's happening. I'm not going to say no today, but I'm seeing these numbers climb very, very high. I'm not certain what our return on investments are. That's something I've been trying to capture as much as possible. But I know we continue to see our community struggling, and I just want to make sure that we're doing the best that we can to support the outcomes that we're all looking for to get out of all of this. And again, we're looking now, last number I gave you was 22-23, where I have $21 million. We're looking to bring it up to $33 million a year. I just want to make sure we're not just spending money, we're also engaged with everything that we can to make sure that the outcomes are the best that we can get. And so I just wanted to pull this to make a comment, and I hope that we can maybe have quarterly reports or every 6-month reports, but we can't have 70 to 80 people dying from something that we can make changes on and wait annually for our MHSA report or annually for other reports. Yes, we're engaged in individual ways, but I think we need the board to be engaged because individually we can't change the direction that we're on.
Well, I think this is I think a way to look at it and frame it is we're not just spending money, we're making the investment to make these changes, and there is going to be a lag. It takes a long time to make these changes, and I'll just pass it over to Director Jones to speak on that.
Sure. I didn't hear a specific question in there, but I can give some general feedback that might help contextualize this. So I will start out by saying that the behavioral health system has been underfunded forever. Okay? When they closed the state hospitals in the 80s, we have not recovered as a state or a nation from that because it pulled out a significant resource from very underserved individuals. And of course, the Mental Health Services Act was intended to rectify that and to try to pump money into a system that, again, has always been underserved and underfunded. Some of the reasons why you're seeing such dramatic increases have to do with our contract with a New Life Tribal Clinic, which is a Tribal 638 provider, and they have larger reimbursement rates than we've been used to seeing. Unfortunately, I don't have the numbers from New Life in terms of served, but that is a medication-assisted treatment program. They do methadone, they do opioid treatment, and so we have seen a significant investment in that service, and we've seen significant growth with that contractor, which is great. Every person that goes there is a person that wasn't receiving that service before. The other driver of the increase in our drug Medi-Cal contract is payment reform. So in recognition that the behavioral health system, and really specifically the drug Medi-Cal system, has received pennies on the dollar in terms of parity with physical health care, and there has been no parity with physical health care despite the fact that we provide life-saving health care every single day, the state finally said, you know what? That's enough. They negotiated with the federal government, the Centers for Medicaid, and said, we're going to get higher reimbursement rates for the services that you're already doing. So part of that will take a long time to take effect. We eventually hope that the increased patient revenue will allow us to advocate and negotiate for higher salaries for our staff. It's very hard to do the work without staff, and that's one of our greatest issues right now. And so we're hoping to see, again, that patient revenue realize over the course of the next year. And the projections that you see within this present drug Medi-Cal contract spanning through 27 are based on the new rates. And so we did see our rates about triple, again, which is just bringing us up to parity with health care. And so I would like to offer the frame of this isn't a significant investment, this is actually the bare minimum. And the bare minimum has not been met for a long time. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Spatier?
So I think I appreciate the comments and I appreciate and acknowledge the hard work that everyone's doing. But I believe we're on 3 years in a row, and there's always a reason for it, but hey, there might be another reason in the future. We keep adding more and more money that we're planning to spend, but yet each year, for some reason or another, we're coming to a request to ask for a loan to help keep behavioral health afloat. And so that eventually gets paid back, whether it's the payment system that wasn't working because the state wasn't put together well, whether it's because we got surprise bills that we weren't aware of and we had to pull from our reserves in order to pay it off. The higher we go in the millions of dollars of what we are allowed to spend, the more of a situation that we can put ourselves in if there's a kink in the system where we don't get paid, which is why I think that it's important for us to continue to stay focused on not just the work that's being done and the money that's being spent, but also the outcomes that comes out of this. This is a lot of money, and we talk about new life. I appreciate that it's there, but I don't think it's a great efficient use of money when that's a $600 plus charge versus someone else that would charge for that at around $50. So I would love to find to make sure that we're focused on efficiencies of tax dollars and making sure that we get the return on investment. I'm not making any questions. I'm just making statements that I would like to see more reporting and more constant updates, in the sense that we just had the proclamation of 79 people that passed away from opioid issues, overdose, and I just want to make sure that we keep our eye on the ball as a board.
Do you have any more comments, Director Jones? No? Okay.
Is there currently like a ad hoc committee that addresses this with you, like that works with you hand in hand on this? Like how we have, like for Continuum, we have 2 Board of Supervisors that are working with you, or on others. Do we have that currently?
So we have the Behavioral Health Advisory Board.
And how many supervisors are on that?
I believe there's one.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's typically Supervisor Green, right? Yeah.
Is there an alternate, do we know?
I believe it may have been Supervisor Sabatier, but I'm not sure. I don't have that offhand.
You're talking about the mental health MHSA?
No. I'm talking about the behavior, it's changed to the Behavioral Health Advisory Board, so the bylaws were recently changed to reflect an encompassing Behavioral Health Advisory Board for both the mental health and drug Medi-Cal plans. So that would be our advisory board that is, of course, an extension of you all, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. I was just thinking too that with the amount of discussion and possible work on this that you're requesting, Supervisor Sabatier, maybe like how we do with other things, maybe put together an ad hoc so it can be more intimately involved or something of the like, or would you rather just have reports to us as a whole?
I just think that, I think the board should be made aware of where we stand, how much work we're doing, how many people we're touching. Committees, ad hoc committees lack the ability to provide direction.
I will say that your board had directed our department to come back here very soon to present on our external quality review audit. We're preparing that, and so it is our intention to report or have a presentation of data. It's hard to talk about all of our programs and services in one shot, so we kind of break it out into pieces. But that external quality review audit will cover all of our mental health plan. So we plan to present all of our audits that we have with the state, the findings, corrective action plans, things like that. And so that is something to be expected, I would say, within the next month.
That's good for me.
Okay. Any comments from the public? And I'm not seeing anyone in the Zoom room or the chambers, so I'll bring it back to the board for action.
Madam Chair, I offer the resolution.
Yeah, Wendy, the resolution has been offered. Can we get roll call, please?
Supervisor Simon?
Yes.
Supervisor Sabatier?
Aye.
Supervisor Crandall?
Yes.
Supervisor Green?
Aye.
Supervisor Pysia?
Yes. Okay, 511 is approve amendment number 2 to the agreement between the County of Lake and Smith Waters Group for fiscal years 2022 to 25 with no change to the contract maximum and authorize the board chair to sign. Supervisor Sabatier.
So there is a change in payment terms that added hours monthly. But I wanted to change something that is just from the previous amendment as well. And it's something that it's never caught my attention before. but it did this time. I passed it by our county council. We've been changing the payment terms within Exhibit B, but not the compensation within the main language of the contract. And so what I'm asking is for adding or amending Section 3 compensation. Contractor has been selected by county to provide the services described hereunder in Exhibit A, attached here to compensation to contractor shall not exceed $135,000. The county shall compensate contractor for services rendered in accordance with the provisions set forth in Exhibit B titled Fiscal Provisions, attached here to and incorporated herein, provided that contractor is not in default under any provisions of this agreement. And that's the same language from the original contract, other than changing the total not to exceed, having two separate a compensation that does not match the payment terms in a contract makes it very contrary. So again, passed it by county council, having both match, and that's the only change that I'm requesting.
Any comment, Lloyd?
Yeah, so for this particular item, the amendment number 2 is asking for, is requesting an amendment to specifically Exhibit B 4.1, which changes the amount of hours at $58 per hour. Now, if that changes the amount of compensation, which from amendment number 1, it's capped at $135,000, then there would need to be an amendment to the compensation provision, Section 3 of the agreement. So, perhaps Director Jones may have some clarification on that, whether or not the $58 per hour would increase the maximum cap of the compensation. And if not, then there would, for this particular item, there wouldn't be a need to change the compensation provision then, and we could leave it as such with just an amendment to Exhibit B, Section 4.2 of Exhibit B.
Then that was my mistake on that one.
Thank you, council. No, this will not result in a change to the total compensation.
So we can leave it as is?
Yes, your board may determine to leave it as is with just the amendment to Exhibit B.
Will council send that language, or I'll connect with you, Lloyd? Thank you.
Do you want to add the language now, or do you want to amend it later?
It's the same as what's being,
Correct.
Okay.
It would be the same.
Okay.
so I made a mistake on that one.
Okay, any comment from the public? Okay, I'll bring it back to the board for action.
Madam Chair, I move to approve amendment number 2 to the agreement between the County of Lake and the Smith Waters Group for fiscal years 2022 through 2025 with no change to the contract maximum, and authorize the board chair to sign.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. 5.13, approve.
Madam
Yes.
Chair,
Yeah,
we do have a 10:15 public hearing.
okay, let me just, you can stay.
Okay.
I think we're just going to continue it.
Okay.
Okay, 6.6, 10:15 a.m. public hearing, consideration of resolution approving resolutions and capital fire facility and equipment plans submitted by the Lake County Fire Agencies. Oh, this is not being continued. This one's we're doing. Okay, resolutions approving and capital fire facility and equipment plans submitted by Lake County Fire Agencies and updating the Lake County Capital Fire Facility and Equipment Plan, and this is by the admin office.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, you're up.
So 6.6?
Yes.
Good morning, Board. Stephen Carter, Assistant County Administrative Officer. So for this public hearing, it's an annual item with the fire districts where we approve their resolutions, which has already been done. They're already at the max fee, so there is no change year over year. But the actual memo, so in October of 1992, the Board of Supervisors adopted Ordinance 2114, establishing a fire mitigation fee program that is applicable on new construction. Pursuant to this ordinance, each local fire district adopted a capital fire facility and equipment plan, which serves as the basis for the findings that support each district's requested fire mitigation fees. Those individual plans and findings were then collectively adopted by your board to become the Lake County Fire Facility and Equipment Plan, which is currently in effect. The subject ordinance also directs the fire districts to annually submit a resolution which reflects readoption of their findings and a request to continue imposition of their fire mitigation fees. And that's the item before you today.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Sabatier?
Yeah, I didn't have a question on this until you mentioned something. You said maximum amount? Is it really at the maximum amount?
From everything I know, yes, it's at the maximum they're allowed to charge for the mitigation.
And that's a state law as far as the dollar maximum?
I can't answer that directly.
Okay, because
I have a feeling it's probably related to the ordinance.
I know we collect 100% of their fee, but I wasn't
Yes, but
aware that there
their
was a
fee-
maximum on the
This is about
fee.
their fee going up or down. There's a cap on what their fee can be. And they've all reached that cap.
The dollar per square foot.
Okay.
Correct.
Yep. Okay. Any public comment on this item? Not seeing any, then we'll bring it back to the board for action.
There's nothing further, Madam Chair. I'll offer the resolution.
All right, Wendy, the resolution's been offered. Let's do roll call.
Supervisor Simon?
Yes.
Supervisor Sabatier?
Aye.
Supervisor Crandall?
Yes.
Supervisor Green?
Aye.
Supervisor Pyska?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry for being late.
You were right on time. Okay, now we will go back to 513. Approve the lease agreement between the County of Lake and Berg Investment LP for 13300 East Highway 20 Unit and Clear Lake Oaks for a term commencing on July 1st, 2023 and ending on February 29th, 2028, and authorize Behavioral Health Director to sign. Supervisor Sabatier.
Thank you. There was two things in here. On section 2.01 under the term, it says that it's a 50-month term, and as of after the first 8 months of the lease, there shall be an annual increase of 3%. When you go to 3.01, the initial term is 1 through 6 months. Then it skips month 7, and it goes 8 to 18, and I would suspect since the first 8 months are supposed to be the initial, that it should be 1 through 8. I don't know what it's supposed to be, but something's not right, and I just want to make sure that we're paying what we should be paying, and what we would be approving does not match what 2.01 says. And also at the bottom, just wanted to, since I pulled this, is we still have Todd Metcalf 2 directors ago on the to tenant representative, and I'd love to make that be our new administrator, Elise Jones. But the monthly stuff, I just, again, want to make sure that a contract is understood by both parties as far as what we're paying, and I'm not quite sure what I'm approving since it doesn't match 2 and 3.
Director Jones?
It may be cleaner just to bring that back next week.
Okay.
I apologize.
Is it on the lease that it says? Is that what you're talking about?
It's on section 3 under rent.
We're not paying.
Oh, I see,
Month
okay,
7.
okay. Yeah, got it.
We're skipping a month, and initially in 2.01, it says the first 8 months is a certain amount, and then it increases by 3%, but here it says month 1 through 6. So I feel like we're paying more than we should.
Oh, okay, well, I was asking about the Todd, I don't see his name, but
It's on page
13?
1.03 on page 1 is where his name appears.
Got it.
and page 10.
Yep.
Okay, so we'll continue this item. I'll see if there's any public comment. I don't see anybody in the chambers. Don't see anybody in the Zoom. Okay, so we'll bring this one back next week. 5.15, approve amendment number 4 to the agreement between the County of Lake and Sierra Vista for acute inpatient psychiatric hospital services and professional services associated with acute inpatient psychiatric hospitalizations in the amount of $106,572, and authorize the board chair to sign. Supervisor Sabatier.
Yes, so this one, I double-checked. That is missing the compensation. We are increasing the compensation here. We are changing Exhibit B, Part 4, under payment terms, but not Section 3 of the main agreement for compensation. And I've written out the language. Compensation contractor has been selected by county to provide the services described here under in Exhibit A, title Scope of Services. Compensation contractor shall not exceed $106,572, and the county shall compensate contractor for services rendered in accordance with the provisions set forth in Exhibit B, titled Fiscal Provisions, attached hereto and incorporated herein, provided that contractor is not in default under any provisions of this agreement. And that's the amendment that I would like to make so that the compensation matches the payment terms.
County Council?
Yes, so that amendment, if your board decides to take that amendment, it would be approval of the contract amendment number 4 as amended.
Director Jones?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Public comment? Anyone? Not seeing anyone in the chambers or the Zoom room, so I will bring it back to the board for action.
Madam Chair, I approve amendment number 4 to the agreement between County of Lake and Sierra Vista for acute inpatient psychiatric hospital services and professional services associated with acute inpatient psychiatric hospitalizations in the amount of $106,572, and authorize the board chair to sign as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. All right.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Since Director Jones is here, you may wish to take up 7.3, and I'll notify Lars if you want to take 7.6 up afterwards, since she's still here, because it relates to behavioral health. Before our next item at 11.
7.3. Okay, yes, 7.3. Consideration of request for motion by the board to designate the chief administrative officer as the signer for the chair on all documents as indicated by Resolution 2023-34, resolution of the Lake County Board of Supervisors authorizing the application for the Permanent Local Housing Allocation Program. I'll turn this over to you, Director Jones.
Thank you. So your board previously passed this agreement via resolution, so there's no change to that. The HCD, the Housing and Community Development Commission that oversees these grants, is extremely particular, and so while the resolution does state that a designee may sign, they're asking that you make a motion to specify who that designee may be, and of course, typically it is the CAO, but I will leave that to your discretion, Chair.
Okay. Any comments from the board? Any comments from the public? Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board for action.
Just for clarification, because I understood this as meaning the CAO as well, I was surprised, I guess I didn't read that it was from behavioral health, even though I understood it was asking for the CAO to sign. That is the appropriate direction to move forward with, I take? Okay, just wanted to check in. And I offer the resolution.
Or a motion? I'm not quite.
It's a resolution.
It was a resolution that has already been approved, so I'm
Oh.
not sure how it works when you're just
Let me
trying
see.
to make a.
I offer an amendment to the resolution.
Let me see what
If,
Or is it just a motion to allow the CAO to sign?
it says by motion.
And yes, since it's done pursuant to the terms of the resolution, it would be by motion by the board to designate the CAO as the signer.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. And then we wanted to do 7.6
Yes, and Director Ewing is available via Zoom.
Okay, great. Okay, 7.6, consideration of Amendment 1 to the agreement with Core Design Group for facility design services for the Behavioral Health Clear Lake Facility Expansion Project, and we've got Director Ewing.
Good morning. So actually requesting that this item be continued to next week. The appropriations for this project were not in at the recommended budget, so they'll be at final. So the continuation of the final budget means this one would, I would ask that it be moved to next week following the approval of the budget.
Any comment? Any comment from the public? Okay. All right, then we'll just continue this item and see you next week.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I think we're done now until after lunch. Thank you so much.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I have alerted both Director French and will do notified Director DeLeon if you're willing to take those up before 11 o'clock.
Okay, are they available now?
Emailing them as we speak.
What?
I was just wondering if we told people that we're not doing 6-7.
Well, we haven't gotten there yet. It's at 11. There we have Director DeLeon. So we will go to 5.40. Sitting as the Board of Directors for the Lake County Watershed Protection District, A, waive the formal bidding process pursuant to Lake County Code Section 38.22, as competitive bidding is not in the public interest due to the unique nature of the goods and services, and competitive bidding would produce no economic benefit to the county, and B, approve agreement with CalEst Analytical Laboratory for water sampling analysis in the amount not to exceed $49,000 per fiscal year, and authorize the Water Resources District Director to sign the agreement. And this was pulled by you, Supervisor Sabatier?
Yes. This one I struggle with, and obviously I pulled the following one as well, and it's the same basic concept of where I struggle, and that's with the waiving of the formal bidding process. I get it that Director DeLeon provided quite a large number of reasons, but I feel that I'm lacking documentative reason to say that no other lab can do what we're asking this lab to do. Usually for unique services, we request documentation to be provided. Here we have a lot of statements from our department about that. I will say it's on me for not noticing. I know we did approve in the past, I think it was 2021, a contract or agreement between the cities and the county to utilize certain labs. I was not aware at that time, and I'll do better to pay attention, that we were not going to do a formal bidding process, or that these labs were specifically unique. We just talked about a lab situation, I think in our last meeting, maybe 2 weeks ago, maybe it was about a month ago. Actually, it's August 15th, it's in our memo. And here it speaks to that lab not being able to conduct the things we're asking this lab to do. And I know from looking from a layman perspective, because I'm not an expert on what each lab does, there are multiple state labs throughout the state of California. I feel like there's a need to eventually do these bidding processes. There's a reason behind them. I feel like we've locked ourselves in for this, but I also feel very uncomfortable with continuously waiving without documented reasons behind it. And so I just wanted to open up that conversation, because I'm not sure that I can move forward.
Director DeLeon?
Good morning, Board. Short of attaching a whole bunch of documents, I've feel like our staff provided adequate justification for waiving. These are special labs, and the tests that they perform is a result of state orders for a particular compound that they want tested. One of the labs specializes in pyrethroid pesticide insect toxicity. And again, these are very specialized tests. They are, there's only a handful of them that are identified in the state as having approved testing methods. And so both of these labs, as Supervisor Sabatier pointed out, were listed in the agreements between the two cities and the county for the sharing of costs related to these tests. I should also note that both of these labs were included in our quality assurance plan, which was approved by the state for our stormwater testing program. Again, these are specialized tests and specialized firms, and we've identified that they have been included in multiple plans and agreements, and we feel that the test has been met, that these are specialized, and that performing an RFP would have no public benefit because we'd probably end up with these two labs. So with that, that's our justification for waiving the RFP process, which, by the way, is allowed in the purchasing ordinance. So thank you. I'll be happy to answer any other questions.
Supervisor Sabatier.
I do have a second question. So from what I understand, this is only supposed to go through December 31st, 2024, because that's what the agreement with the cities are. But here we're looking at a term all the way through July 1st, 2028, which increases my concerns of no bidding and such a long term. And again, mimicking my same arguments from the August 15th conversation. Does it have to go through July 1st, 2028 if it's specific to that agreement? Or are there other labs that are outside of the scope of the Clean Water Act agreement that we made with the cities?
Well, again, these labs, the pyrethroid order from the state is due to expire in December of 2024. So one of the labs that we proposed has a term of 1 year to get us through that pyrethroid specialized testing. But the other lab, again, has been listed in our quality assurance plan. We've been notified by the state that if we propose changes to that, they'll need to go back through the review process to ensure that any lab that we propose and change in our plan meets with their approval, and all of their tests are certified by the state. So it's again, we're proposing the use of a lab that has been identified by the state as acceptable and is in our plan.
Thank you for the response.
Okay, any more comments from the board? Any comments from the public? All right, I'll bring it back to the board for action.
I see kind of a lengthy recommended action. Is that the form of a motion, it looks like, or is it a twofer? Would I do A and B in one lump?
Your board may just take the A and B separately by motion for each.
Okay, I'll do that. Sitting as the Board of Directors for the Lake County Watershed Protection District, I move to waive the formal bidding process pursuant to Lake County Code Section 38.2 paren 2, as competitive bidding is not in the public interest due to the unique nature of these goods and services, and that competitive bidding would produce no economic benefit to the county.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Madam Chair, I also move to approve the agreement with Caltest Analytical Laboratory for water sampling analysis in the amount not to exceed $49,000 per fiscal year and authorize the Water Resources Director to sign the agreement.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. And while we have you, Director De Leon, we can do 5.41. Sitting as the Board of Directors for the Lake County Watershed Protection District, A, waive the formal bidding process pursuant to Lake County Code Section 3822 as competitive bidding is not in the public interest due to the unique natures of the goods and services, and B, approve agreement with Pacific Eco Risk Analytic Laboratory for water and sediment pyrethroid toxicity analysis in the amount not to exceed $100,000 per fiscal year and authorize the Water Resources Director to sign the agreement. This was pulled by Supervisor Sabatier.
That word is a lot easier when you're involved in the Clean Water Act Committee, for sure. Just same comments, so I'm not going to belabor the points. Director De Leon, you had said it was for a year. This one's through June 30th, 2025. Just want to make sure that that's what you are looking for.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. I will do the same as far as my vote. I do not agree with the waiving of the bidding, but I will agree on the contract, as I feel like there's no other choice other than to hijack this project and not make it move forward, and the clean water projects are necessary, so.
Any further comment from the board? Any public comment? Okay, I'll bring it back to the board for action.
Just a quick question before I make the motion. On this staff report, the recommended action under A does make a finding of the unique nature of the goods and services, but it doesn't include the boilerplate language that no economic benefit would accrue to the county. That may just be an oversight. So if I make the motion, I'd like to do the twofer. I'd like to make sure we have the unique nature of the goods and also no economic benefit, if that's okay.
County Council?
That would be up to Director De Leon as to the grounds that he's utilizing for the exemption from competitive bidding.
I support that modification.
Thank you. If there's nothing further, I move to, sitting as the Board of Directors for the Lake County Watershed Protection District, I move to waive the formal bidding process pursuant to Lake County Code Section 38.2 paren 2, as competitive bidding is not in the public interest due to the unique nature of the goods and services, and no economic benefit would accrue to the county.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Also move to approve the agreement with Pacific Eco Risk Analytical Laboratory for water and sediment pyrethroid toxicity analysis in the amount not to exceed $100,000 per fiscal year and authorize the Water Resources Director to sign the agreement.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you, Director De Leon.
Thank you.
Okay, now we've got 5.6.
26.
Real quick question, if
Oh, sorry, yeah, 5.26, yes.
7.2 would be for Director De Leon too, so I just wanted to see if that would time out well with
I'm
the other stuff.
just trying to get through all the consent first. Okay, 5.26, we've got IT Director Shane French. Okay, waive the formal bidding requirement and authorize the IT Director to issue purchase order for renewal of Microsoft apps for enterprise and associated licenses to Dell Marketing LP. And this was pulled by Supervisor Sabatier.
So unfortunately, I'm on a roll with the waive of the formal bidding. Here, there was not a specific exemption that was provided, and in speaking with Director French, I believe that the extension of renewal or something like that is the exemption that we would need to provide in order to waive the formal bidding, since this is a continual expense to continue the software that we use.
Yeah, there's a couple things going on with this one, and this does not increase more than CPI, but in addition, and I didn't put this in the memo because this is actually a 3-year agreement, so we're kind of on the hook for the 3-year regardless. But it's also a competitively bid contract. It's on the Microsoft Riverside agreement, which is, it's pretty much the one you use if you're in local government, just because it's the big one. So in addition to it not increasing, it's also on that piggyback contract. Yep.
Okay, any comments from the board? Anyone in the chambers? And no one in Zoom? Okay, we'll bring it back to the board for action.
I believe it's moved to waive the formal bidding requirement due to 38.1 exemption titled Extension of Annual Agreement, and authorize the IT Director to issue purchase order for renewal of Microsoft apps for enterprise and associated licenses to Dell Marketing LP.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you. All right, is Lars still available? I can just, wait, we did that one. Sorry. There's just too many items today. Okay, so we're through all the consent except for 514, which we're doing after lunch.
Did we do 3.3?
Oh, it didn't make it on the list. Yeah, let's go do 5.33. Okay, do we have Director Harder? There he is. Okay. 5.33, approve the MOU between Lake Osan and South Lake Fire Protection District and the California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection for operations and placement of an air curtain incinerator in Middletown at the west end of Middletown Wastewater Treatment Plant, and authorize the chair to sign the MOU. And the term was left blank in this agreement, so I'll just pass it over to Director Harder.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. You are correct. We neglected to include the term of the agreement or the MOU within it before it went to you for consideration. So I've been in contact with Chief Duncan of CAL FIRE, and we agreed that a 3-year initial term was acceptable to both parties. So what we recommend is putting the start date in that clause on the contract, which is clause number 6. That the initial term of this MOU shall be from today's date, September 12th, 2023, until September 30th, 2026. So the recommendation is that the board move to authorize the chair to sign it contingent upon a initialed and approved agreement from Chief Duncan. He's already signed up, but we do want his formal initialing and approval on the modified MOU.
Okay. Thank you, Director Harder. Any comments from the board?
Just a
Supervisor Green?
question on the term. This appears to be a continuation or a relocation of what's important for disaster response in terms of disposal of waste, but an initial term of 3 years kind of pushes the envelope at what I would consider a temporary use or an emergency use of the property, and a little bit closer into what may a standing operation that may require some sort of use permit or something like that, and maybe permitting from air quality control. So certainly supportive of doing whatever we can to support the recovery, but as a temporary fix, an initial term of 3 years sounds more like a permanent operation to me. So could you speak to that?
The air curtain incinerator itself is a temporary operation. I believe they've already coordinated with air quality, so those permits have been, taken care of by CAL FIRE and South Lake Fire Control Protection District. If the board is more comfortable with a shorter term, I'm certainly agreeable to that, and I believe Chief Duncan would be as well. In either case, whichever term the board decides to approve, it does need to go back to Chief Duncan for his formal approval before it will be signed by the chair.
Vice Chair Simon?
Yeah, I think, obviously, since the Valley Fire and every other, disaster that we've had, I'm not can't name all 18 or 19 of them at this point, but, this is, it's going to be probably for the next few years here, obviously, that we're doing. I know CAL FIRE's worked hard to bring these into the area. I think that the position that is going to be set in on 175 there with the sewers plant is the right way. I think the 3-year agreement definitely makes, a good start. But I'm okay with the 3 years because we know the long-term recovery process. We started out talking after the Valley Fire that it'd be 3 years. So we know it's most likely going to be a decade. And we've got a lot of work on the vegetation abatement stuff that we're doing. So I think we're moving in the right direction. I hear your questions, Supervisor Green, but I still think the 3-year term is the right way to start out.
Supervisor Sabatier?
I appreciate the question from Supervisor Green. I'm okay with the 3 years, but there's one thing I didn't see in the memo or hear from Director Harder, just to make sure that we're equitable in what we're asking the public and what we're asking from ourselves as a government agency. Has CDD signed off on the temporary use of those things as far as any CEQA exemption or anything like that? Because I know we've been dealing with temporary buildings, and yet we've had to go through the process of ensuring CEQA, and I just think that's the only thing on the checklist that I am not aware of. But if that's occurred, I'd just like to know. Just curious.
I'm not aware of it occurring. Well, it hasn't occurred for our site that I'm aware of. It may have occurred for the other location. It is probably exempt. It's probably a permitted use under the existing zoning of the property, which is, light industrial with the wastewater treatment plant out there already. We did not see a conflict in that, but I'd be happy to reach out to CDD and confirm that.
I think that would, in my opinion, make me more comfortable if you did reach out, but I'm okay with moving forward today with the 3 years.
Yeah, I'm okay moving forward, but I just want to clarify a few things. This is not disaster response or recovery. This is ongoing fuel work that we're working forward to mitigate. And yes, there's a lot of leftover biomass from our fires, but this is going to be for community drop-off days. This is for our tree mortality problem. This is for people doing defensible space, and ultimately will be part of our countywide biomass strategy. This is the site that has been used multiple times for grinding and chipping after the Valley Fire, after the tree removal along Highway 175. So this is a pretty minor operation compared to what has already occurred there, and the air quality permits are already in place. So I don't see an issue with this, and I don't have an issue with the 3 years either. Supervisor Green?
And I'll just add, I don't think incineration of waste would appear in the zoning ordinance as a permitted use, so I would take exception to that characterization. And also, if this is going to be routine, then there should be no objection to if this is the type of activity that would normally require a use permit, including notification to nearby residents. If this has been fully vetted and brought in by the neighborhood, if it's gone to math and everyone's happy with it, that's one thing. But if somebody was going to put a incinerator next to my property, I would want notice on that, and I would want the opportunity to comment on that. So as a temporary use, one thing, but it sounds like the characterization here is this is going to be an ongoing standing operation. And in that context, I do believe we should at least take a look at what requirements might be there, because I don't necessarily accept the characterization that this would be a permitted use. But I'm not going to stand in the way of it.
We've got Director Turner, but I'm going to push back again and encourage you to look at the ACI technology. This is smokeless burn. So when you incinerate things, there's no effect around you. And it's been operating in a more dense community without any comment in the Cobb area. This is an area where there is no residents around. But I do see we have Director Turner. Go ahead, Director Turner.
There are certain reasons to get general plan conformity determinations, say that the county were to acquire land, dispose of land, things like that. Temporary use by the county, I don't think would require a use permit because of the county's exemption from the zoning code. However, notifications of neighbors, Mr. Harder has already experienced that, is a great idea when moving forward, just to keep everybody on the same page.
Director Gerhardt?
Hi, Doug Garrett, Air Quality, and I was just going to pipe in, and the current permit that the air curtain burner has allows for 15 days total operation at any one site. So we haven't evaluated the long-term use at any one site. So they're 15 days of burning, and then they're supposed to move it to a different location. So permanent install is a little bit different type of permit. So they will have to go through further review to do this type of operation. So.
Yeah, and thank you for bringing that up, because this is not consistently used. This is going to be coordinated drop-off days with the community, and then the burn days will be organized by the fire department. So thank you for bringing that up.
Correct. And I would just further add that, this was presented by Chief Duncan to me as a temporary measure. And they would like to get them set up long-term in the county, but this is brought in kind of on a pilot operation. And as the Chair Pieska indicated, it is intermittent usage. Chief Duncan indicated probably 2 burn days a month is all he was anticipating, with the organization and the coordination of community drop-off and movement of the goods being the other operation at that site. So as structured currently, it is envisioned as a temporary. Long-term, there is probably desire to bring one in the county full-term, but that would definitely go through community development and a longer permanent permitting with air quality as well.
Right, 2 days a month, but during seasons when the conditions are appropriate, so it wouldn't be running throughout the season. And then this is a pilot program that we will be looking at as we develop our biomass strategy going forward. Okay, thank you. Do we have any comments from the public? And I'm not seeing anyone in the chambers or anyone in Zoom. Okay, then I'll bring it back to the board for action.
So can I ask
Yes.
one more question? I know that Director Turner just left, but she did also offer something. And I just, again, if a resident installed this versus us, I'm just looking for some kind of sign off from CDD, because moving something into a place, I don't know if it just dropped off on the ground or if it has to be staked into the ground or whatever, but all those things potentially are similar processes that CDD has to go over to say this is exempt or not exempt or things like that. I'm just kind of curious if that's just a possibility. Again, I want to show the public that we're taking the same steps that the public would have to take, because there needs to be parity in the activities we do and the activities that the public does. We can't just say this is a good thing and do something. If it's an emergency, yes, we can make certain things happen without going through the process. Just kind of curious, I know that Director Turner mentioned the contacting of neighbors or things like that. Is that something that CDD should be signing off on to say that there's no need for any further information or studies? Just because I don't know enough about it, but I also know the typical process when somebody wants to use a property for something that is not specified for that specific use.
So we have a number of wood processing options in the zoning code. A wood yard, a lumber yard, a power generation facility, things like that. This does not fit any of those. This is more of a biomass short-term processing with no connection to power. So if a person wanted to, if it was not a county project, if it was a private project, then we'd have to take a look at the project description, as we have done with a number of the biomass projects that have come before us so far. Is it a county-led project is one of our normal criteria to look at because of the exemption to the zoning ordinance. But should it be a private person, we would then take a look at the project description. How long is this going to be there? What sort of technology is this? Are there any emissions? We'd send it out for review just to make sure that, especially air quality, had no concerns or comments. We would take a look for CEQA. Where does it register? Do we have a categorical exemption or some sort of statutorial exemption? Yeah, so it would go through a greater review were it a private project. However, I'm not certain. See, our resource planner has been doing a bunch of county-related projects, but I think they're mostly lakeshore permits right now. So, but we'd be happy to work with Scott to see if there is any CEQA that is required, or if a categorical exemption is appropriate, we'd be happy to get that done as well. So we do always stand ready to support our departments in whatever CEQA needs they might have.
Okay, so it's a portable unit. It's not attached to anything. It's just set on the ground. Some units actually have wheels that can be moved because the intent is that it's frequently moved around. We do have in our county and around in our surrounding counties, contractors who move these around constantly. Because this is how you cleanly dispose of vineyard debris, orchard debris, all kinds of things, because it's smokeless. And so we've got contractors in our county who own these and move them around. It's part of the job of doing fuel reduction and disposition so that we don't have big piles burning. So it's just a tool. It's never permanently attached. It doesn't stay down. It doesn't have a foundation. It's just put on a trailer and moved around.
No, I get that.
Additionally, in light of the fact that it has been ongoing on a private basis as a tool to help with the chipping program, we would also take into consideration that we've received no complaints about such activity to date.
Right. In a neighborhood on the side of a highway. Vice Chair Simon.
Yeah, it's a completely self-contained unit. It has been operating here in Lake County at different locations. I think it started in South County first, and it moved up to Cobb. So it's been in operation here in Lake County. I thought, the MOU with Local Sand just makes sense in the South County there. Like we said, we've had multiple operations that push it through there. It is, an air curtain incinerator. I know when you say incinerator, you think there's smoke coming out and all this stuff, but it's completely self-contained. It drops off. It is basically the same concept of the water dipping tanks that we just put in all the way around the county, with the coordination of CAL FIRE, just different. One is water, one is fire, but continue to move this forward. So hoping that we can move forward with this MOU today and bring any information back if there's something that needs to be completed. This is something that CAL FIRE worked really hard to lobby to get those being brought to Lake County. We missed out on a couple of the biomass pilot programs, and this is a step forward in that direction and ultimately, a positive thing. So, I'm hoping that the board will support moving forward with the MOU today, and then if we need to have some more questions or we need to bring that back later on, then we'll continue to work on that. But I'm hoping that we can move forward with this today. I know it's been a long time in the working. I know the CAL FIRE has gone to the math meetings. I know we've talked about the incinerator. There's another math meeting this Thursday. So continuing along those efforts to continue moving forward here in Lake County. I'm hoping the board will get 3 today to support this. So,
Supervisor Green?
Yeah, thank you. And again, I obviously want to encourage pilot projects and all that, but when we're transitioning from these temporary uses coming out of fire recovery into kicking the tires on what it's going to take to create some permanent biomass conversion facilities, here's a perfect opportunity. Here's a good thing to do it on. I see what appears to be, under CEQA terms, a project with South Lake Fire or CAL FIRE as a lead agency, or the county as a lead agency for the applicant, which is the fire department. And to the extent the contract puts any guardrails on. It says the fire agency actually has to work with the Air Quality Management District, but there's not a corollary that they have to work with CDD to determine if any CEQA issues are there. I fully believe there's probably a CADX available to a public agency doing this, but I want to go back to the original thing. If we're going to be standing up pseudo-permanent facilities, we should look at it as such and not take a 3-year contract and call it a temporary use. So I'm interested in figuring out if this, upon further review, is a project under CEQA. Number one. Number two, if it is, there's very likely a CADX in there, but we can't even do that until we circulate this as a project under CEQA. And I think that would be the appropriate determination to hold off on the contract, think about whether this needs to be scoped as a proper project, take it to CDD, if only for the limited time it takes to come back and get a CADX out of there. So that'd be my preference on that.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes, thank you. Go
Chief
ahead.
Duncan is in the Zoom meeting. He does have his hand raised.
All right, Chief Duncan. Good to see you this morning. Go ahead.
Morning, Board. I just saw that Doug Gearhart signed on, so I'll let him go ahead and speak in addition to the project because he is our permitting process. But this is looking to be like that 3-year location and then with the potential to move this thing somewhere else. So we have about 14 of these in service throughout the state, none with a CEQA requirement. We are using the county location just because it is a more universal and publicly owned property and will be more accessible to the folks out of Anderson Springs, Middletown, and will also tie in that Cobb area with that. So this machine could be moved in 3 years, and I anticipate doing that. We just wanted to make sure that the time frame covered what the need was. So if we run out of fuel, which I highly doubt, we'll be happy to move that to another location where we can continue the operation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Supervisor Sabatier.
So again, move forward today, yes. But I also feel that we just need, if it's CEQA exempt, there is nobody else in this room other than Director Turner and her staff that can say CEQA exempt. And so just passing that through her office, moving forward, passing this through her office, getting that sign off, I think is just doing what we ask everyone else to do whenever they have any kind of project that they're doing, whether it's temporary or permanent. I think that's an appropriate way to move forward. That way we're checking our boxes just like we're asking everyone else to check their boxes. I don't want to hold this up. This is important. We need to continue to mitigate for potential future fires and clean up our environment. And I hope that that's the way we can move forward.
Okay, we're ready for action.
Before there's action, looking to see if there's consensus to also bring it to community development for the sign-off.
I could just add one last thing. I'm not even certain it qualifies as a project under the definition of CEQA, but we're happy to work with Scott offline. If any CEQA is necessary, we'll get it done.
Okay, thank you.
So I'd like to move to approve the MOU between Locust Inn and the South Lake Fire Protection District and the California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection for operations and placement of an air curtain incinerator in Middletown at the west end of the Middletown wastewater treatment plant for a 3-year term, going through all permit steps, I guess. So with CDD, and authorize the chair to sign the MOU.
Second.
All in favor?
If I may,
Would that be okay?
Madam Chair, there was also discussion of having the board approval be conditioned on SFL, sorry, Chief
South Lake Fire,
Duncan's approval.
conditional upon approval.
Added.
And the amendment of the dates.
and the amendment of the dates.
We got lost in the
So
conversation.
moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you, motion passes. All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you, everyone. Okay, we have an 11 o'clock item, 6.7, consideration of proposed agreement between the County of Lake and PlaceWorks for planning services for the general plan and local plan updates. Director Turner.
Thank you. I am super excited to bring this item to you, but at this time, since part of the funding is dependent on the approval of the budget, we are going to, we request that this item be carried over to the next, to September 19th, after the approval of the budget. But basically, this item is a proposed agreement between the County of Lake and PlaceWorks, which is a planning consultant firm for the update of the general plan and all 8 local area plans.
All right, well, we look forward to being able to go over this. This is very exciting. Do we have any comments from the board?
Just need the date and time certain, I assume, because of public hearing. So would that be an afternoon session?
It's not a hearing, it's a
It's actually not a public hearing, but we did ask for a time since the, we want to have PlaceWorks staff available for any questions or comments.
And do you already have that time lined up for next week?
I am happy to.
We'll take care of it
Yeah,
over agenda review.
There's a lot going on for next week, so we'll get that time set up when we have the budget.
Yeah, since it's not a notice public hearing, you can just place this at any time that you find convenient.
Yes, we will. Yep, we're looking forward to that conversation. Okay, do we have any public comment? And I'm not seeing anyone in Zoom. Okay, bring it back, and we will continue this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Turner.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I do have Director De Leon available if you wish to take up 7.2 before the...
Sure. Before 11:30.
Yes, 11:30.
All right, I've got time for that now. 7.2, consideration of letter of support for the Lake County Watershed Protection District's request for Wildlife Conservation Board funding to conduct a Clear Lake Hitch habitat improvement planning and assessment for Tule Lake, Scotts Creek, and Adobe Creek. Supervisor Green.
Thank you. Water Resources has been busy. There's a lot going on with the hitch response and between Blue Ribbon Committee and the congressional allocation, stuff like that. I'm learning how these projects kind of come and go and then come out again in a grant application. I don't want to misspeak on what's been happening here, but my understanding when this was presented to our Scotts Valley Advisory Council is we have rebundled some of these projects that Water Resources has been working on, got a pre-application before a Wildlife Conservation Board. There was a positive response, and we've been invited to submit a full application. So we didn't quite get the job done at our Advisory Council for agenda reasons. But the draft letter attached would be in support of this grant application, which covers habitats in Scotts Creek, Adobe Creek, and the Tule Lake portion of the watershed. I can let Water Resources speak to the actual tasks outlined in this grant application, but they're all very substantial and very important, not just to the hitch recovery, but to water quality in Clear Lake generally. So if Water Resources wants to add anything to that, please do so. I apologize, this kind of came together in a slightly rushed manner, but I understand there was some time sensitivity to get this application in. So,
Director De Leon.
Yes, good morning. I'm also joined by Angela De Palma Dow. I don't really have any plans to add more than what's already been said. I will note that per county policy, we will be coming to your board, and perhaps this is part of the confusion, and we will be coming to your board tomorrow, or I'm sorry, next week, for your approval and authorization to submit the grant. And of course, at that time, we'll be presenting all the details about the grant But we do appreciate Supervisor Green's support of this and certainly the Scotts Valley community. This is a good project. Angela's worked very diligently on putting the grant together. And any specific questions that you might have regarding it, Angela is available, and we would appreciate your letter of support. Thank you.
Okay, any comments from the board? Supervisor Sabatier?
Since there's still a week before we submit this, are we also soliciting other partners to do the same as what we're doing today to approve a letter of support? To try and bolster the application as much as possible?
Hi, Board. I can answer that. This is Angela DePalma-Dow from Water Resources. Yeah, we have project partners that have submitted letters from Scotts Valley Band of Pomo Indians, Big Valley Rancheria, Habimatal Pomo of Upper Lake, and we co-applied with Flow West consultants that have been working with Big Valley and conducting flow studies already in Adobe Creek for several years.
Okay. All right, do we have any public comment? I'm not seeing anyone in Zoom or in the chambers. So we can bring it back to the board for action.
Yeah, I would just like to add, some of the advisory council members were going to do individual letters. We weren't able to do it as a joint council because of the agenda, but they were going to follow up with individual letters and e-blast it out to the community. So I'm hoping we'll get some individual letters of support too.
And can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
What about the city of Lakeport, since they're kind of in the middle of that whole region that this grant is talking about, just to see if you can get a city support on it? Just wondering if you've had that conversation with them.
No, but I can.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I can fast track that, but let me see what I can do on that. If there's nothing further, Madam Chair, I move to approve the letter of support for the Lake County Watershed Protection District's request for Wildlife Conservation Board grant funding to conduct the Clear Lake Hitch Habitat Improvement Planning and Assessment for Tule Lake, Scotts Creek, and Adobe Creek, and authorize the chair to sign.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Sorry, Scott.
Thank you, Scott.
Director Veach is online for the next item, 7.4. If you have any questions for him, I just wanted to.
Okay, yes, let's do that. 7.4, consideration of appointment of County Librarian Christopher Veach to the North Bay Cooperative Library Systems Board of Directors. Director Veach? There he is. He's just been promoted. There he is.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you. I'm Christopher Veach, County Librarian. So the North Bay Cooperative Library System is a JPA that was created over 40 years ago to distribute funds from the state through the California Library Services Act and allow libraries to regionally share resources. As a county librarian and library director, I have been attending these meetings for over 10 years to advocate for our library system. And it's customary for the library director from each member library serve as the representative for their system.
Any questions from the board? Supervisor Sabatier?
Yeah, my only comment, if you're not at the table, you're not getting what we need over here, and so I appreciate you wanting to step up and be a board member and advocate for the needs of Lake County, so thank you.
Thank you. Any public comment? Okay, I'll bring it back to the board for action.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Oh, yes.
The agenda item packet, or the agenda packet for this item, attached an agreement, which is a request to join the North Bay Cooperative Library System. The effect is the same, which effectively would appoint County Librarian Christopher Veach to the North Bay Cooperative Library System. But for purposes of the motion itself, since it is identifying the agency to enter into this agreement, the motion would be to approve the agreement request to join the North Bay Cooperative Library System and authorize Christopher Veach to sign on behalf of the applicant agency, County of Lake.
I believe that we already are a member, and that is a historical document to demonstrate the purpose of the North Bay Library Cooperative System.
If that's the case, because the one attached in the agenda packet had blank signature fields, so I wasn't sure if it was already been executed by the County of Lake as far as this agreement for a request to join the North Bay Cooperative Library System.
We have been a member for over 40 years, so.
April 24th, 1978. I see a date on here, Lake County Library.
Okay.
Okay.
If
So
that's- In that case, there would be just a motion to appoint Christopher Veach.
okay, thank you.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Question first, can I get a question in?
Yes, Supervisor Green.
So it looks like we're a member of the JPA. I'm looking in the organizational documents. So we're not appointing you as a JPA member. We're already a JPA member. And I don't see in here that there must be a board of directors or each individual sits on the board of directors. So my only question is, are we appointing you to the board of directors of the JPA, and should we so state? And just because it's helpful to have alternates designated sometime, should we, in approving your appointment, also approve some authority for you to appoint a delegate should you not be able to attend in person?
I don't believe an alternate is necessary. They meet about once or twice per year, so it's fairly easy for me to always appear before the JPA. I'm sorry, does that answer your question?
Yeah, and I see in the title of the agenda item answers it, so we are appointing you to the board of directors of the JPA, so it wasn't super clear in the agreement, but yeah, that's what we're doing. We're appointing you to the board of directors, so.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christopher. Congratulations. Okay. 7.4. Okay, let's do the 7.5 appointments. We've got consideration of the following advisory board appointments. We've got first five. Can start with first five. We've got one appointee, Carly Sherman.
Can you do them all individually?
Well, we've got,
We got to do per committee.
yeah, per
committee, okay.
committee. Yeah. So first is Carly Sherman.
She's already on there and wishes to continue.
Any public comment? Okay, I'll bring it back. Action.
We have to appoint Carly Sherman to First Five Lake Commission.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, next we have the Heritage Commission, and we've got one applicant, Gordon Haggett. Any comment? No. Okay, public comment? All right, bring it back for action.
Move to approve Gordon Haggett to the Heritage Committee.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Just a quick question. Was he appointed as, I believe he's in District 4, or as a public at large?
I think it's public at large.
Okay.
That's what his application said.
Okay.
Just because both were open, that's why I was wondering.
So, yes, I think it was the public at large.
Library Advisory Board. We've got Jamie Buckner Bridges. Any comment? Any public comment? All right, I'll bring it back for action.
Move to approve Jamie Buckner Bridges to the Library Advisory Board.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The Resource Conservation District, we have one vacancy and one applicant, Jacob Bridges. Comments?
No comment.
Public comment? Okay, back to the board for action.
Move to approve Jacob Bridges to the Lake County Resource Conservation District.
board.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the Food Policy Council, we have 13 vacancies and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 applicants. Cornelia Cyber Davis, Dawn Smith, Gabriela Perez Albarracin, Katie Evans, Loretta Ray, Rebecca Harper, Anthony Steele, Baird Hara, and Colleen Wrench. Supervisor Spatier?
So just wanted to say Gabby Perez would be under the Red Cross, Don Smith would be under hospital, Rebecca Harper under the Farm Bureau, Colleen Wrench and Katie Evans under local farmers, Baird Hara, not sure if I pronounced that correctly or not, from NCO, Anthony Steele under the tribal membership, Loretta Ray under the farmers market. Loretta Ray is the Gleaners, our food bank. Cornelia Sieber Davis, it would be under the farmers market, and those would be the applicable membership seats that those individuals would fill.
Any public comment? Okay, bringing it back to the board for action.
And I am still working on the last two applications, and that would be education and grocery store. Waiting on those applications to be submitted. And I move to approve Gabriela Perez, Don Smith, Rebecca Harper, Colleen Wrench, Baird Hara, Anthony Steele, Loretta Ray, Katie Evans, Cornelia Sieber Davis for the Food Policy Council appointments as membership, the membership status stated.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. That motion passes, and we'll just wait 1 minute. Okay, we'll take a 5-minute break, 6-minute break. We'll come back at 11:35.
Thank you. But there's like, oh.
So close, Terry. Yes. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah. Good job.
I know.
Put together a committee that you and Mike agree. Since you have time. That's what I was going to say.
Steven said he had a little pen that will show up a little better than the black.
Yeah. What is that for?
It's for,
Oh, the 5
like we
years.
mentioned, 5 years, yeah. So I'm gonna look for the gold over lunch.
I know there's a silver line.
Okay.
Okay. So just, is that for
Rest
next time?
I don't think it's on there. But I'll check and I'll let you know.
All right.
Just one warning.
Not that I'm keeping track.
No, thank you. Yeah, that's why I got a pocket of Altoids.
Yeah, I guess they probably haven't seen the water thing either.
I didn't realize that the board appointed RCD board members. That's what they just did, right? Interesting.
That's nice.
Why? Independent Special District. I'll have to ask Susan or Lloyd later. I didn't realize that they appointed RCD board members.
She's ready.
Asked Doug to be at the RRA meeting.
Okay.
As an umbrella today, I just don't wrap my head around that. Okay. We are going to go to 6.8, our 11:30 a.m. Item A, consideration of the County of Lake acting as lead agency on a planning grant application under the Community Resilience Center Grant Program and the California Strategic Growth Council, and B, consideration of resolution approving the application to apply for up to $500,000 in grant funds under the Community Resilience Center Program of Strategic Growth Council and of the California Department of Conservation, and C, consideration of a letter of commitment and authorize the chair to sign. And I'm going to turn this over to our Chief Climate Resiliency Officer, Terry Logson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning, Board. I'm very excited to bring this item for your consideration. I have a little presentation that I adapted, well, it's mostly the Tuolumne Resource Center, Community Resource Center. The County of Tuolumne got funding before this grant program. They patched it together. So I wanted to run through it a little bit. This particular map that you see is something that I had to create for the grant application, and it doesn't list everything, but you will see that there are a number of place markers, and what they stand for is locations within the county. When we began these discussions, I don't know, 6-7 months ago, knowing this funding was coming down, was what trusted facility is in every or almost every community in Lake County, and that is the senior centers or community centers. And so this particular grant, the way that we have framed it is a hub and spoke model. And so these are each of the spokes that will be served by a future hub, which is the Upper Lake Senior Activity Center, the Lucerne Alpine Senior Center, the Live Oaks Senior Center in Clear Lake Oaks, the Spring Valley Community Center, the Senior, what's the full name for the Clear Lake? Senior Community?
Highlands.
I know it's Highlands Senior Activity or
Senior Services Center.
Senior Services Center, thank you. The Middletown Senior Center, the Middletown Boys and Girls Club, which is operated by the Middletown Rancheria, the Little Red Schoolhouse, the Kelseyville Senior Center, Lakeport Senior Center, the Silvera Community Center in Lakeport, the Lake County Fairgrounds, and Galilee Lutheran Church. And Galilee Lutheran Church came into this conversation because one of our partners in the grant, which is Pastor Shannon Kimbaloff, who is with Red Cross, works with them, and that was the first location of our pilot Neighbor Fest, and they were very interested in what we were discussing for this planning grant. And what this planning grant will do is we're going to look at each of these facilities and find out what needs they have to upgrade their facility to serve as a cooling, warming, or clean air center. And it could be, you know, some of the senior centers have very strict contracts, so they can only be open to serve their population. Some of them can be their activity centers, and they've expanded, like Clear Lakes, where they could theoretically serve the entire public and perhaps be an evacuation shelter or an overnight shelter. Right now, that's not what we're looking at for any of these facilities, but what we're looking at is a place where it's neighborhood level, because so many of our members of our community don't have reliable transportation, so you need someplace close if you want to get out of the smoke, and if you want to cool down, or if you want to warm up. You want to go someplace that is trusted, familiar, and it's already in your community. And then the long-term project is what we envision from what we toured in Tuolumne, which is a standalone community resilience center that has office space so that it's sustainable. You know, there's people who are renting the office space that are going to provide services. It will have a warehouse. It will have meeting rooms. It can serve as an evacuation shelter. So go ahead and go to the next slide. And so this is the facility that we looked at in Tuolumne, the top one. So that is in the city of Tuolumne, and the bottom one is in the city of Groveland. Next one. And so just a little bit of the background. They went through this, the rim fire in 2013, and this grant program wasn't put together. They gave feedback to the state, but this is some of the types of the funding and what they needed to do to get funding and put it together for these resiliency hubs. Next one. And so this is just an overview of some of the funding that they needed and they used to address their biomass issues that were imperiling the community. Next slide. And then a list of questions that they asked the community. You can go to the next slide. So what they really said was ask the community, talk to the community, and so the way that we have put together this grant is primarily for a consultant who will do that work and work in coordination with myself to make sure that it happens. And so Groveland, their facility, the community wanted it to have a primary focus on serving their elderly and seniors. And the Tuolumne Center wanted it to be, because it's right downtown in the middle of Tuolumne, to focus on families. And it has a swimming pool outside. They offer college classes. You can go to the next slide. The next slide. I think this is mostly this. I just wanted to make this information available to yourselves and to the community. You can go to the next slide. So what it mentioned on the previous slide, you don't have to go back, is a community stakeholder advisory committee. The way that we're setting this up is that stakeholder, that advisory committee will be a subcommittee of the Risk Reduction Authority. Because we have representatives on the RRA that serve everywhere in Lake County. The fire protection districts have their contacts, the water purveyors have their contacts and boards, the tribal nations have their members and services that they provide. And so having a subcommittee, it doesn't have to be of the RRA members, but it'll be a subcommittee of the RRA who can help guide this. You can go to the next one. And so this is just the layout, the floor rendering, but we did a project, not a project, an exercise when we toured the facility to talk about what we wanted for Lake County. And one of the major things that we need is warehouse space, and neither of those had warehouse spaces, but we know from going through all the disasters we've gone through is when supplies and come into the county, we need one place for it to go, and then it's distributed around. And that's how we came up with what we call the spoken hub model. This freestanding facility, you can go to the next slide, and the next one. This freestanding facility will have the services like they have on this list, the Amador Tuolumne Community Action Agency, which for us is North Coast Opportunity. They're our community action agency. They have a local college that does online courses. Their HHSA provides services there. They plan to have a kiosk for their community development and planning department so that people can go in instead of having to go to the courthouse to get permits. And then other types of services like OES or just a community services unit office. Next slide. And so again, that's what the outside looked like at Tuolumne. Next slide. Isn't that nice? That's Groveland at night. Yeah, you can just click through these. I just wanted to make it because it was such an impressive feat that they were able to pull together. And the facility, they purchased the land from the Tuolumne Band of Miwok Indians, and then the tribe gave property for the parking lot, and that's at Groveland, for the Tuolumne facility. And both of them they're beautiful and brand new. And they have clean air, excellent ventilation, which you need in these pandemic times, as well as we all know, during dense smoke events. So that is just a little snapshot. So what we're applying for is up to $500,000 for a planning grant. The idea, well, I'll go back. There's 3 stages for this grant. The first is a planning grant, and then there is the second level, which is resource, forget what they typically call it, and then the third one is implementation, where you actually build. And it's a very long process. Is what we heard from Tuolumne, to make sure you have the community on board, Also, in the second stage, they do not allow a lead applicant to apply on behalf of facilities that you do not own. And so there's a good, what we looked at is that each of the facilities, say for instance, the Live Oak Senior Center in Lucerne, that's not a county-owned facility, but what we want for them to have is a strategic plan so that they can seek funding, but they know what they need to do to upgrade their facility. I don't know how many times we've heard, oh, how many shovel-ready projects do you have? It's like, we don't really have any shovel-ready projects because we never have the funding to put the plan together. And so that's what we're seeking for this. And it could be on the next round that we bring in other county-owned facilities, such as I don't know what it's called, but at Russell Rustiki Park in Lower Lake, there is a facility and it has a kitchen and it could use some upgrading. The town hall in Lower Lake, it may not need too much. Leased facilities that behavioral health has, right now we have to have control of them, and maybe a lease would do that. I think it would. But there are other facilities that the county own that we can look at to do that upgrade. And so we're excited to identify a location for a brand new CRC and get feedback from the community near and far who will be utilizing it. And so I hope that your board will approve and authorize the resolution to apply. Also included in your packet was something that was required for me to submit on the grant, which is this local climate change snapshot. And I didn't intend to go over it, but I included it so that the public could have it. It's heavy reading. And then there is a letter of commitment from the county which lists time, dedicated time for myself and Wendy to work on this, basically liaison with the consultants and direct them, invites, and setting up community meetings. So I hope that your board is excited about this project as I am, because it's something that's very much needed, and I know we'll get the grant.
Terry, thank you so much for your leadership in this. We've been having weekly meetings with all of these partners for the last couple of months, and then we got to go on the field trip and be truly inspired by what's going on in Tuolumne. And their resilient centers are so successful. They are this year applying for more grant funding to build more of them out in the remote areas of their county where they still have people that are underserved. And you know, you did give us that climate data, which is hard to look at, but it's our reality. And it is our responsibility to harden our communities and make sure that we have resiliency embedded at the local level. So these hub outlets will be community-led and designed, as will this. The spokes will be, and then the hub will certainly be. But the idea is that we're turnkey ready for any event that comes our way any time of year, because we know it doesn't really matter what season we're in. The lights go off, the air gets smoky, low snow, heat wave, whatever happens, it all happens to us here in Lake County. So thank you so much. And Supervisor Crandall.
Yeah.
So you have your pen up.
A couple of things. One is, I know at the Lucerne Alpine Senior Center, we own that, but we lease it to them. Is that still how it goes, or I thought we leased it to them. Yeah. Something like that.
The thrift shop.
Oh, it's the thrift, that's right, it's the thrift shop, sorry. The clubhouse in Nice, it's owned by us. It used to be the Lions Club, it's right behind Keelan Park. Back up, just in case that might be something. It's got infrastructure problems. It used to be on one of our project lists back in 2019, but we reallocated that funding to the Lucerne Harbor project, so it's kind of just sitting there, open building.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and they have been so important to our conversations. Every week, they've been showing up. Yep. Supervisor Sabatier?
So I did have two questions that automatically popped up. Number one, the map that you provided are prospective locations where enhancements and upgrades can be done once this planning grant is done, and then we acquire more grant funding or other funding to throw at those facilities. I'm looking at the way that Tuolumne kind of went through their process, where they built two, and we're looking at like 12. What's our way of prioritizing? Because if we try to do them all, then I feel like we're not going to get much done in comparison to if we isolate what is the priority areas. Is that something you're planning on looking at as you go through this planning process? Just because it looked like we're doing a jack of all trades rather than expert of one type of thing. And I just wanted to check in to see what your thoughts were on the way that you're going to process this.
Right, that's a really great question. So initially, looking at this, the idea was to make each of those sites what is typically called a community community resilience center, which is like the one we viewed in Tuolumne. However, a lot of the senior centers said we can't be open to the public. We cannot, and we certainly don't have staffing. We don't have training, and so this is what we want to look at. We're not going to fund them to become like that building in Tuolumne. What we want is the county to own a freestanding one that can serve all of those. So that's why it's a hub and spoke model. The hub will be this freestanding facility. Through this planning grant, what we're hoping to find is locations, possible locations, to look at all the zoning, to look at what is needed infrastructure-wise. Is there, all of those things that you would look at when you're planning a facility, and then go for the next level where we would look for designs, pinpoint down, do more community. But for the senior centers, and like for instance with the Lake County Fairgrounds, we all know that they tend to be the incident command for CAL FIRE for incidents. In most places, when you are evacuating your livestock or animals, you take it to the fairground. Our fairgrounds don't have that capability. And so we want to get a plan so that the fairgrounds can go for funding, and I can help look for funding for them to be able to have it, because we need the fairgrounds to be functional in that regards for livestock and animal evacuations.
And so this actually came up last winter. We were looking at a grant for the fairgrounds, and this would apply to any of the satellite spokes. Here is a funding opportunity where we can apply to get the fairground built out to be exactly what we need to do. But you had to submit the plan.
Right.
And we didn't have the plan. And there's no money for the plan, and there was no time to develop that plan. So that's what's in this planning grant, is to get all those satellite spoke facilities a plan and support so that they're ready to go and they can get that funding. It's not all going to come out of this. But we have been supporting those facilities with our ARPA funding and getting them things we need. And so every chance we get, we were going to try and get them, upgrades to be sustainable. But that strategic plan is so necessary for each of those properties.
And I don't want to say I disagree, but I think that the funding that we have supported them hasn't necessarily been with the idea of this. It's been the idea of what services are you already offering, how do you help continue it, whether you're doing Meals on Wheels, whether you're doing senior center activities or things like that. This is a little bit more specific.
It's specific, but yeah, I mean, we asked them what they needed.
Yeah.
And we gave them money to do what they needed. And we're not, it's just an example of like when one senior center wanted solar panels and another senior center wanted a generator. That was their choice on what they needed, but this is to help them really get their plans in place for more funding.
And to tie all of that together. So maybe they got solar panels and they didn't really, we don't really have enough money for the battery backup. So that'll be identified in the plan.
So stop me if I'm outside of the scope, but I just think it's something that I don't feel is in existence, and that's MOUs to understand what is, what can be done when we need them, what is approved for them. I just feel like we go with the closest one and try to figure out how to make it happen, but there's not a specific MOU to understand what are the responsibilities and roles of each individual. So I hope as we move forward to make this a little bit more permanent, a little bit more planned, rather than I'm not going to say it's random, but depending on the emergencies, we have to pivot with what's needed for the community to continue to be served appropriately. But I feel like we have a lot of handshake deals or a lot of approved conversations that, yes, that's what we're going to do. But I'd love to see us end up with MOUs with some of these individual sites in the long run, especially as we're supporting them to get some of the funding to make some of the changes that we're going to be asking them to make.
Well, that's the legwork that we've been doing right now, and that is the goal. And that's why we're finding out, okay, you're a senior center, you can only do this. Okay, you can do this, you can do this. And so, we need to get all that laid out. We need to have those understandings, and then we'll be moving into our strategic plan and MOUs.
Right, and to figure out where the gaps are, when you look at Clear Lake Oaks, if the senior center there can only serve seniors, then we know that we need another facility. We need to identify something else for the residents.
Which is how we got
the Boys and Girls
double
Club.
booking here in Middletown.
Yeah, so obviously, we already at the casino are a shelter. We have the resources through, we have our MOUs with Red Cross, PG&E. We have another facility downtown that we're looking anyway. It's right downtown. Obviously, a mile out of town is a little challenging for some folks. For us, we just put it up as, hey, we're moving in this direction anyway. We'll be part of the conversation. We have no problem signing an MOU down the road on that aspect to move it forward. But we're already putting in grants, and this will help organizations like the Tribe to go get other pots of funding, because they're really looking for that community collaboration. And so for our building, which is the Boys and Girls Club now, that's how it came to fruition in our conversation. And it's right downtown. So it just makes sense that we continue that on. And we're having these conversations not only with the county at this time, but the other organizations we have agreements with out at the event center that we currently use. So that's Red Cross, PG&E. We're moving, whether it becomes part of this spoke, it's going to be there anyway. So we'll make sure that we finalize an MOU for that conversation once we get there. And I can only speak on behalf of our building for the Middletown Rancheria.
Thank you, and we're really, really excited that it's part of it because it's the only facility that specifically serves youth. So we want to learn from that and include that because it's an issue, families may not have a place to go when they need clean air because maybe the kids aren't allowed at the senior center. We don't know that yet, but we're going to find out. So thank you for participating.
And in the past, for multiple fires, especially the river and the ranch fires, it was a distribution center in the back of the house there for all the tribes, for air filters, many different things, the food packages, all that. The BIA reached out to us, and it just made sense when we started to have the conversation. We've already done this. We didn't have it written down, as you said, in the middle of a disaster. You just do what you got to do, and people call you, say, yep, facility is available, let's get moving. So it made sense to be a part of this too for our community.
Supervisor Green?
Yeah, thank you for the presentation, very thorough. Obviously, planning, first part of the process, where it all lands with our various senior centers and all that. It'll probably work itself out. What I saw in the Tuolumne County example were like fully realized CRCs, big deals, and successive rounds of grant funding for construction and stuff like that. So I don't think we're going to be able to shotgun that level of project around the county, but if our scoping and our planning drives us in that direction where we want like really full service CRCs like that example, that's one thing. If our community through this planning grant wants to fluff up our existing facilities to the extent possible, and I do notice there are some location restrictions on subsequent grant monies. So, but the only thing I really wanted to compliment staff on, even if it was a requirement of the application, was the commitment letter. And I just wanted to highlight that because this, we have so many things going on in this county, and we contribute so much staff time and resources and stuff like that, and normally it falls under other duties as assigned. This breaks it out. This is exactly what we're doing in terms of supporting this effort. It's down to the dollars and cents. It's down to the FTEs, and I really appreciate the ability to track in real time what we are doing as a county, and getting that granular gives me assurance that we're being responsible stewards. That obviously is going to reassure the state folks handling this, that we are committed and we're putting that commitment forth. But for my interest as a manager, if you will, I like to see that level of commitment be quantified as opposed to, oh, here's another meeting we're going to go to. So I just wanted to compliment that. It may be just a simple one-page grant requirement that you did a one-off on, but I want to highlight that as an example of things I'm looking for in all these broad things that we support. But we do a great job getting the support out there and committing verbally to do these things. We don't do the best job all the time quantifying the level of that support. So I love this letter for that.
Yeah, and this is a requirement of Terry's grant.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, any public comment? Oh, one more comment from Supervisor Sabatier.
Yeah, I just remembered that Ms. Loxton said something about the RRA. I just kind of want to understand where the RRA's role is in all of this, or are they just kind of a recipient of the information of the planning process that you're going to be actively engaged in?
It's a great question. No, mostly a recipient of the information, but also the members of the RRA. I'm going to be soliciting their assistance and help in convening the community groups to give feedback and to work with the senior centers because the members are all around the county. And so the advisory committee will be a subcommittee of the RRA, but it won't be like many of the subcommittees of the RRA won't be members of the RRA. They'll just give updates to the RRA, which then can come back to your board.
Okay. So we do, I'm going to open it up for public comment, and we do have Shannon Kimball off. All right, so you can go ahead and unmute and have 3 minutes. Thank you for joining.
Thank you. I just wanted to add a couple comments in terms of the strategy around having boat around the lake. Because we have the lake in the center, as we all know, it can make travel difficult, especially in fire season when roads may be closed or in inclement weather. So the strategy is not to have these full-blown centers around the lake, as I think it was Supervisor Green that said, but more specifically that these hyper-local trusted partners that are already serving in communities, while they may not have the resources to be a full-blown center, the full-blown center can support them to do the work within their hyper-local community rather than forcing people out of their community into a single point of service. So that's one thing. And then the second thing I wanted to comment on is that part of the strategy of the American Red Cross in terms of the other partners that we're working with, whether it's Galilee Lutheran Church, because there are no community or senior centers within that geographic area, which is quite isolated and has a number of seniors who don't have reliable transportation. So in Galilee, that location was chosen specifically because there was not another option there. But then Kelseyville Presbyterian Church also was working on becoming a resilience hub. They have a youth dedicated building that they're a part of. And then there are organizations that we think of as being senior centers. For example, Lucerne Alpine Senior Center, but it is not owned as the county. I think it was Supervisor Crandall that pointed out the county owns the thrift shop but not the building. So because they will not qualify for some of these county, state, and federal funds because they are outside of that county structure, the Red Cross piece within this planning is that we are helping them to increase their capacity. So we're working with Lucerne Alpine Senior Center to get a generator switch, and we're working with them to provide an ADA accessible ramp so that people have easier access. So it's very, while this planning grant is the county plan, it really is a broader holistic strategy for the entire community, not only for community-owned partners. So I just wanted to highlight that one piece as we were talking about how broad this planning really will be. And one of the questions that came up to me recently is why does it take so long for the planning grant? And I really wanted to emphasize, as Terry was saying, that the key to the strategy behind the Strategic Growth Council plan is that they are community-led. And so we want to make certain that we're not rushing this process and that we're really listening to the community and what it is that they want, both for the hyper-local centers, but also for this one large center that's going to be able to resource all the smaller ones. And that was it. Thank you.
Great. Perfect timing. Thank you, Shannon, for filling in the gaps that we might have missed. Okay, and then it looks like we've got a hand up. Betsy Kahn can go ahead and unmute, and you've got 3 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I would just like to say that all of these special programs should be part of the update of the general plan and the area plans. And, you know, that it's a very high priority for those. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, do we have any other public comment? Not seeing any, so we will bring it back to the board for action.
Just a real quick follow-up question. It's just a question, because the way it's stated, and thank you for the clarification, Pastor Shannon. So the presentation on the Tuolumne side focused on kind of like fully realized things. Now that I'm reading the staff report, it does talk about maybe we could at best do one of those major ones and then support the spokes. And that's reasonable. That's a reasonable conclusion. So, but wouldn't a planning grant be, an open-ended planning grant would be, we can look at both those models. Like, for example, a central hub and feeding the spokes could be okay, but there could be physical and financial constraints with those various spoke locations. So I think, I just want to ask, like during the planning grant, we're not locked into one particular model. We may have some ideas, some broad brush ideas as lined out here, right? But we're not committed to any particular model as this initial planning grant unfolds, right?
No, the intent is to find out what each of the spokes need to be upgraded to be able to serve as a cooling center, warming, and when I say warming center, it's not an overnight, just a warming center and a clean air center. What do they need physically, financially, staffing-wise, volunteer-wise, and then to identify a location, as we're having these conversations, where would it make sense to have a standalone hub?
Okay.
Well, and also, this is the initial phase, and it can be augmented, and built on as we go. As I mentioned, Tuolumne is developing more, but you got to start somewhere. And you can't have too big of a plan where you can't get off the ground. So this is our initial plan. It is a planning grant, and we'll get through that, and then we'll apply for the next 2 levels to get to implementation.
And I'm really hoping to learn a lot from talking to the senior and community centers about their needs, because as you mentioned, there are other sites, that I wasn't aware of that the county owns that could be. They just weren't identified in time, because this grant, we hope to apply on Friday. But we'll learn these things to know and make it easier as we go forward with other locations.
Supervisor Spatier.
2 things. Don't forget juvenile hall, if there's any way to implement them and how to upgrade their needs, because they do offer that type of service already on a regular basis, but if we can enhance them during cooling and warming center, those who are experiencing homelessness would typically be directed there, just as another addition in that area. And then finally, on Friday, when you submit the app, if it's possible to send a copy of the application, because I think the details are not all right here in front of us. It's more of a perspective idea that's shared with us within this item, where the details within the grant are a little bit more specific as to who the partners are, what the expectations are, and so on and so forth.
Okay, we're ready for action. Yep.
It's a 3-parter if
I
it's
think
not.
Vice Chair Simon's got it.
That's all right. I'll second it. Mike wants to go ahead.
All right. Move to approve the County of Lake to act as lead agency on the planning grant application under the Community Resilience Center's grant program from the California Strategic Growth Council.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'd like to offer the resolution.
Okay, Wendy, the resolution's been offered.
Supervisor Simon?
Yes.
Supervisor Sabatier, pardon me.
Aye.
Supervisor Crandall?
Aye.
Supervisor Green?
Aye.
Supervisor Pyska?
Yes.
And finally, I move to approve this most excellent commitment letter and authorize the chair to sign.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Thank you, Terry.
Thank you very much.
You're killing it.
I'll be back again soon.
All right, great. Thank you. Okay. We need to reopen item 6.5.
Yes, Madam Chair,
Yes.
the reopening would be suggested that it be done via motion.
Yes.
By the board.
Yes.
I move to reopen item 6.5.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. We need to reopen 6.5, 9:15 a.m. public hearing, consideration of the final recommended budget for fiscal year 2023-24 for the County of Lake and Special Districts governed by the Board of Supervisors. CAO Parker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I apologize to the board. We need to revise the time certain to 1:30.
Okay. Any board comment? Any public comment? Not seeing any. Okay. Well, I'll bring it back to the board for action.
Move to continue the public hearing of the final recommended budget to the September 19th, 2023 Board of Supervisors meeting at 1:30 p.m.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Motion passes. So we've got our 1:30 item and 7.7. We did 7.6.
Oh, wait, we moved it, that's right.
Yeah. Okay. Do we have Director Marketan?
Is she?
No? Well, we can do it after lunch, and then we'll just have,
My apologies, Madam Chair. It appears we have Amber Davis from
Oh,
DSS
great.
to present this item.
thank you, Amber. Okay, 7.7, consideration of Lake County Department of Social Services, LCDSS, Department Head authority to authorize contracts between $25,000 to $100,000 for out-of-county wraparound services without board approval if contracts are eligible under the master contract for wraparound services, and I will turn it over to you. I think you're on, oh wait. Try speaking again. There we go.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me now?
Yes, perfect. Thanks, Amber.
Hi, my name is Amber Davis. I'm the Deputy Services Director for Lake County Social Services. Thank you, Madam Chairman and the board, for hearing us today. We're very excited to be here. This master contract has been in progress for over a year, attempting to figure out a way to both meet our mandates for services, support services for our families, specifically in wraparound services at this time, which often are needed fairly quickly to maintain a placement so that a youth doesn't enter a higher level of care. But we also have a federal mandate that requires that we have aftercare services, which are wraparound services, for any youth that leave an STRTP, which is a short-term therapeutic residential program. And so sometimes what would happen is that these services would be over the amount of $3,000 which per month, which would require us to have a contract through the county purchasing ordinance. And our process is great, but it can take 1 to 2 months for a contract to be completed, depending on if it needs to be approved by county council, or if it needs to be approved by county council and the board. And so what we were finding is that we were having some issues with meeting both mandates of our regulations and also the county regulations for the purchasing ordinance. So the department head, Crystal Marketan, actually reached out to Anita Brandt the fall of 2022 and asked her if she had any ideas of how we could move forward in a way that would be beneficial for everyone. And she was able to do some research in other counties and found that this is something that some counties are doing to assist them in similar situations. And she was the one that actually thought that we should move forward and attempt to have a master contract approved. We've also met with the CAO office and the auditor's office to discuss this, and they seem to be on board with us. And so we are here today requesting that you approve this master contract.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions from the board? Supervisor Sabatier?
Appreciate this being brought to us. I'll just be blunt. I'm not comfortable with signing off on something all the way up to $100,000. I also think that this is very specific to a department, and I also foresee that if we start approving on one department, that we will start seeing this coming from other departments as well. I'm looking at behavioral health, who deals with a whole lot of contracts, more so than I believe social services does. I would like to more look at, is $25,000 a ridiculous maximum amount at this moment in time, and we need to increase that. I don't know when we set $25,000 a while ago. I'm sure that other counties have different maximum contract allowances before having to bring it to the Board of Supervisors. I think that if we review it in a more general sense, then we're looking to provide efficiencies within every single department rather than a single department. And maybe I will not be in support of going to 100,000, but even if we go up to 50, it would help to make a whole lot more stuff efficient. And so that's the direction I would like to go, rather than a single department allowing for contracts up to 100,000 to go through. And I know it's more specific than just the department. I apologize.
Supervisor Green?
Yeah, thank you. So first, as to the need for the flexibility and how to stay compliant with the regs, yeah, we need that. Getting these services in place rapidly is a challenge. And I have lived through some of those challenges, and it's not fun. And just on a very tangential thing to watch cases that are struggling and wraparound services that need to be provided, but there's some question about eligibility, there's some question about whether we can go over our contract. So to the issue of whether DSS needs flexibility to get these wraparound services provided in a timely manner, absolutely. The question is what it's going to take to do that. So the master contract is fine as far as it goes, but it's kind of silent as to the standard purchasing requirements that go, like anything over 25K. So to Supervisor Sabatier's point, yeah, we could unpack whether that 25K is just unreasonable on its face, and I'd welcome that discussion. But for this particular item, I don't see that the terms of the contract are fine. The master contract idea is fine. I just don't know that there's anything in the terms of that contract, or if the fact that it is a master contract in and of itself exempts the requirement to seek approval for any contract over the 25K. So does the master contract under our current purchasing ordinance kind of end run that normal 25K cap? Because it's not spelled out in the contract, it's not really spelled out in the staff report. So I want to support this. I do recognize it represents an exception of sorts. If the master contract approach is one valid way to get around that standard requirement, I don't see if yes nodding heads or no nodding heads. Anyway, can we just clarify that a master contract is one vehicle that's allowed under our purchasing ordinance that could provide, if we pass this contract today, the flexibility to not come back to the board when we approve these services up to 100K? Did I even pose the question adequately?
You posed it adequately, and yes, it is, but however, Stephen Carter is here if you have any additional questions.
Go ahead, Stephen.
So let me just do briefly what I know about this scenario. This was definitely done under Anita and via the purchasing policy and from the legal perspective, that it was well within our ability, if the board approved, to have a master agreement for these very specific transactions that are on a very time-sensitive nature, to where that agreement is what agreement they would always send to the vendor to sign, with very specific changes that they agree upon ahead, like a quick RFQ. And the master agreement is one that the board has basically, let's say, blessed and given up to so much allowance, and allows the DSS department to go into those specific agreements quickly. And under Anita, that was well within all of the rules.
Lloyd?
Yes, so it is, it is contemplated in our office that as part of the recommendations, and perhaps Deputy Director Davis can speak to this, that there would be a request for qualifications process that would be consistent with the county's purchasing ordinance and or consultant selection policy prior to the entering of, that would utilize the master, the proposed master contract template, but that RFQ essentially would take the place of what would usually be or normally be the RFP process under the county's purchasing ordinance, but there would be a process nonetheless for obtaining qualified contractors through this RFQ process.
100% agree.
Thank you for that clarification.
Okay. So Amber, we're talking about people here who really need services. And can you just explain to us maybe some of the situations that have caused the need for this?
Well, there's two different types of individuals that we tend to help underneath wraparound services. The first, you may know about our local county contract that we have with RCS for wraparound services. And generally what we will do is refer a family to them when we are afraid that the needs of that family is so great that they need some extra support. And it's our attempt to either prevent them from coming into child welfare, or if they already are, to maintain that place, so we don't have a child or a youth going from one home to the next.
Amber, can you speak a little louder? We're having a hard time hearing you.
Oh, it would help if I put this down again.
That's
The goal is, of course, to support these families in a way that we can prevent any kind of disruption in the placement of that child. The other side of the spectrum is that sometimes we do have to have a child placed out of home, and sometimes it has to be on a higher level of placement, such as a short-term therapeutic, an STRTP placement. But there's a current, and we were thankful for this, federal law that went into effect that requires us to immediately start wraparound services for any youth that's stepping down from an STRTP, because of course they're in an area that everything is focused and they have a lot of people involved and they're receiving a lot of services. And so you can't expect everything to be perfect when they go from there back to a lower level of care. You have to provide more services for them, not just legally, but ethically, to help that family stay focused. So those are kind of the two sides of the spectrums of individuals and families that we help with wraparound services. I will say that right now we only have 4 youth in an STRTP, and we are working, of course, as always, to try to bring them out of that higher level of care. So this is not a contract where we're going to have 50 or 60 different contracts under. We may have 5 or 6 children who are placed out of county who may need these services that we can't use our local vendor. And we have a few that are placed out of county because we have no STRTPs in Lake County that will need them when they come back home or when they go back to the relative that they're going to live with. So I don't know that that matters to any of you board members, but it is a contract that would be extremely beneficial for our more complex youth and their families and caregivers. And it, luckily right now, and hopefully we will maintain that, it is not for a large number of people.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Spatier.
So outside of the, my opinion that we should be looking this more in a holistic thing, I'm looking specifically at the contract, and Supervisor Green brought some idea in my head that there's not a definition of wraparound services or STRP within the contract. So it really doesn't, in my opinion, limit what this could be for. I hear wraparound services all the time for so many different things. And the fact that this is specific to STRP, but it's not provided in the description of services under the scope of services, I think should be a requirement that it's in there. That way it limits it to the specifics of what you're requesting us to approve. And I think that might make it a little bit more comfortable and safe to move forward with that. Because it really does not denote STRP whatsoever that I can see within the scope of services.
Absolutely, we can make those changes.
Okay. Supervisor Green?
Yeah, so I agree some definition is helpful, but to the point of short-term residential treatment programs, or STRTPs in particular, this contract doesn't cover STRTPs. It covers wraparound lower than an STRTP level placement. Is that correct?
Right. It's wraparound services aren't actually the funds for the placement themselves. It's the funds for the supportive services of wrapping around that youth once they step down from an STRTP, or, of course, the other side of the spectrum, trying to prevent them from going into a higher level of care.
Okay. So for that clarification, this contract, we're not talking about STRTP funding, but to use that as the potential example, to Supervisor Sabatier's concern, if we were to bring back a master contract idea for STRTP placements, whoa, great idea, because those are going to be pricey, and because those can be time sensitive, those can be very urgent. So I just want to highlight that as if we move ahead with this master contract today just for wraparound services, great idea. And then we may have a choice moving forward. If it's a great idea today, then maybe there will be some mission creep, and maybe we will see social services and BH come back with some additional ideas for master contracts. I think that'd be okay, because then we get to have that kind of issue-oriented or theme-oriented discussion about what a proper latitude is for a department head to grant a contract. And it may also be the cleaner thing as far as putting out RFQs for providers. So thank you for the clarification. These wraparound services are important, not just for kiddos stepping up into the system, but for those stepping down from those very high needs residential placements. I'm in support of this.
Stephen's hands up.
Stephen?
So Supervisor Green actually brought up a good point, which I don't know since I was working at the same time, that was brought up earlier, that this was actually in our mind considered a pilot for possible to see how it functions, the master agreement concept here, because it is in LA and other counties. And if it is successful, then yes, we were potentially going to expand it to other services like Supervisor Green suggested.
Okay, thank you. Any other board comment? Supervisor Spatier?
So I know that currently, and I haven't done a whole lot of work, but I've initiated conversation with both county council and the admin office about reviewing our purchasing ordinance again, as well as, and involved in that would be potentially increasing our maximum amounts. I really think that solves much more than just the one problem that is before us today. Looking to see if there is support of continuing that just because I think it's an opportunity to at least kind of put the finger in the wind.
For other departments, yeah.
Because I think that for our purchasing ordinance, if we have the ability to increase that to 50,000 instead of 25, again, that helps. For the maximum, if we can, and again, I'm using 50, that doesn't have to be the stopgap. I think we need to look at what other counties have as their maximums and look at the comparisons of different counties, population and amounts of our budget, so on and so forth. I just think that this is a much more exhaustive problem than just this specific program that's being discussed.
Okay, yeah, I think we can bring that back, but let's stay on this contract. So
I was just asking for.
Yeah.
I think you got 3.
Yeah. So this, this master contract, Stephen, you mentioned that this is pretty standard for some other counties. Do we know, like, can you speak a little bit more about that? You said LA County. What other counties?
Well, I would have to do some research specifically on that, but when Anita and I were going over it, it's LA County has this quite a bit for social services. They might even have it for behavioral health, but I don't have enough background to give you great detail other than I know for a fact big counties like that use it. I could come back with that information, but I don't have that on me other than the LA and a couple other counties for sure.
Okay, well, that's fine. Thank you.
And their agreement, by the way, is like 200 pages long because it was the guide.
Yeah. Okay. Do we have public comment? Not seeing anybody, so we'll bring it back to the board for action.
There's nothing further. I move to approve the wraparound master contract, allowing the department head or designee for Lake County Department of Social Services the ability to negotiate and authorize compensation with any qualifying service provider through the RFQ process for wraparound services in an amount between $25,000 and $100,000 per fiscal year for the time period of fiscal year 23-24 through fiscal year 25-26 without prior board approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay. All right, motion passes. Thank you. So we've just got calendars, and we have Dr. Doohan coming at 1:30. Do we want to do calendars now, or do we want to do them later?
Where do you go? Oh, you want to do it later.
Okay, then we will come back. We'll come back at 1:40. Give everyone just about an hour. And then we'll do 7.1 after we do our 6.9 item. All right, thank you.
Are you holding
I got mine, yeah. I don't know. I'll see. It should be. I think I have.
Carolyn texted me, she goes, just say Supervisor Burns. I'm like, I don't know what happened.
She's all looking out for you.
Lord.
Love it. You know, that's not even my real last name. I made it up just to make it difficult.
So appreciate that. It's crazy.
I'll go a different way. audience.